Welcome back to the making of the September 2022 Evertale Arena tier list. We already placed the 1.0 units in the previous video, so if you haven't already and want to check out my commentary on each of these, you can jump over there and watch it. But other than that, let's get right into it. We still have a lot of 2.0 units to get through. All of them will be placed on this tier list except for Rin, which has been released after the cutoff for my data. And so we start off with Mirai, who was the first unit released in the 2.0 era, and she kind of revolutionized the support game, so to speak, with her kind of spirit producing side effect and kind of really helping other units reach their full potential and popping off some great attacks with the gift turn, pain heal, and so on and so forth. And especially in the combination with Earth Ray, I still think she's quite good. She's also getting ignored a lot because of her stun passive, which is kind of really something that the AI is afraid of. Obviously, stealth attacks are not included in that, so she will probably get targeted by the stealth units a lot, but other than that, pretty good stuff from Mirai, and she's also going straight to SS tier, so we already have one more unit on the top, and so she's currently our best unit. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We have Storm Antares coming up next, and she was the second unit released. Also absolutely great unit still with her stun all skin. As I mentioned in the previous video, stun is kind of the weakness of the current meta units, and so if that gets triggered, and the AI does like to trigger it if you're not stealth, but sometimes even the stealth units do their attacks without stealth and trigger the stun skin for her, and then she also pops off her Thunder Heart maybe a few times, and then it's kind of a devastating effect. So it's easy to see why she's still holding up so well, and she's in the SS tier for now. And then we have a special case. We have Anya, Storm Anya, who kind of was the best unit, I think, last summer for a while. Really, really great functionality. But yeah, actually, now that I think about it, no, she wasn't the best unit last summer. Last summer, that was already Snow White, but early on in Evertale, in Evertale 2.0, she kind of revolutionized the game with her kind of temporary guard and retribution train, doing a lot of things better. But nowadays, also the auto barrier kind of fell off somewhat with all these, enraged attacks on the one hand and armor ignoring attacks on the other hand. So it's not as good as it was. She was really a great unit. She's still okay, but she fell off to some degree. In my tier list, unfortunately, she only gets the A tier anymore. And that after being SSS tier 1 year ago. And then we have Drainer, no, sorry, that is normal Rainer, Earth Rainer. And so Rainer was someone I didn't think would pop off, and she also didn't pop off. I mean, 4% of teams are still using her, but yeah, this is the E tier in this tier list, and she kind of has a nasty habit of potentially, putting stun absorbs on your best team member and then maybe even sacrificing it. So the unit that you would like to, lead the charge against the opponent gets killed by Reyna for a little, for a strong attack to be sure, but sometimes it's not even doing much damage. Anyways, so that is why she's E tier, the weakest 2.0 units up until this point. And then we have Earth Ray, who is ranked in the S tier. In combination, especially with the other units like Storm Ralosha, she can still be a great force for you, kind of resetting all these re-entrance passives. This is also true maybe for the new unit like Rin, where you can actually reset the hold ground plus with it. So yeah, I think Earth Ray will still stay around, and she's currently ranked in S tier in my tier list. Then we have Storm Reset, and she was another disappointment, even bigger potentially than Reina, although not by much. I mean, Storm Reset still has that kind of stun flash going for her and the purifying, but you know, just not that great unit, and I didn't find any top team actually using her. And this is the case as well for the next one, for Fire Shana. I mean, Fire, as I said earlier, already has a kind of hard time, but Fire Shana kind of takes the cake. I'm not sure. Yeah, I actually have to put her into G tier, to be honest, because Desperate Armor is already kind of a weird concept, I think, because you kind of need the armor when you still have a lot of HP. If you don't have much HP left, it won't save you in most of the cases to have some crazy armor on you. Also, her kind of hurting herself with her attacks is also problematic. Yeah, I don't see any real good use for her. Even in a burn team, there's so many better alternatives at this point, so just skip her. And then we have Snow White, who was the best unit in the summer last year, before the release of Dark Gene. And yeah, and that's for a reason. I mean, she has that kind of stealth heal thing going on for her, and she had a nice armor ignore attack that could be used right at the start. However, unfortunately, the meta changed in a way that her her survivability suffered a lot, and also that kind of quick shot at the start isn't that great anymore. So she's landing in the S tier, still good, but yeah, she was SSS tier just a few months ago, and so that's quite a significant drop for her. Only 68% of teams are still using her. And then we have Bright Ludmilla, and she's actually our very first SS tier unit in this current tier list from September 2022. Even though she was already released 14 months ago, she's still holding up as the best guard in the game. She has this 100% guard going for her. She's a divine guard who kind of regenerates every hit she takes. And the most important part, or kind of the combination of these parts, is she can defend for quite a while, and if she does that 2 times because of her free step back that she also has, which also heals her up fully coming into the battlefield at 100% health and armored, is just a great combination. Obviously, you don't want to have her in burn teams, and also not that great of a mechanic for stealth teams, but still the very best in stalling the opponent. So yeah, that's SSS tier, Bright Blood, and from SSS tier, unfortunately, we go to E tier with Light Clarice. I think this is not quite doing her justice. Maybe, I would see her in C or D tier personally, but, I have to follow the data on this one, and the data is saying this is an E tier unit. Only 2 teams are still using her. She can have, that kind of nice Mori replacement passive when a teammate dies is cool, and she also doesn't get targeted a lot, so her survival drain sometimes pops off as well. But yeah, not a very great unit for 2.0 standards, although I feel like she has, become a bit better over the months after her release. And then we have a Bunny Reset, which is an interesting unit because she is the first sleep unit that allowed sleep units to force someone to sleep who has already slept on the battlefield. So yeah, that was interesting for sure. Unfortunately, at this point, she's only in the C tier. Still good for sleep teams, but other than that, also some better sleep units at this point. And speaking of which, Water Colon not quite qualifying for a sleep unit actually, but she has that kind of sleep flip, yeah. So yeah, that's something she has going for her, and her more stunning mechanic is the imposter that she exchanges in the enemy team, and that can stay there for quite a while, disrupting the whole enemy build up, especially with, you know, kind of replacing guards or something like that, making other DPS vulnerable. So Mortar Colin definitely a great unit. She's also the last unit personally that I have fully awakened, and we are going to SS tier with her. And after Water Column, the next unit that was released was Dark Gene, who rose quickly to the top, absolutely dominating unit. It's clear why, because just the whole package is really there. She has great survivability in AI because she just doesn't get targeted a lot, especially back then when stealth units were still not really feasible because of their high time units. So yeah, Dark Gene just survives. If she doesn't, then usually Michaela comes in, stunning, putting, you know, some Morris in the back, and possibly after 200 TU already reviving Dark Gene, and then it starts all over again. Some good, you know, kind of poison passive. No, not a poison passive, more like, you know, what I was alluding to was the healing rage. So 50% health, HP increase, and at the same time, you also get enraged. So with the next survivor attack, you probably push the boundaries with a 750% on 2 targets. So yeah, just really good overall unit, and not even Michaela is that bad if she's out. If she doesn't get to survive, even then she can pull off some pretty strong attacks, especially with her high speed, getting in the turn very quickly. Yeah, enough on Dark Chain. Next up, we have Dark Colin, who was released in the same month back in September 2021, and her tier is unfortunately the D tier, D for D colon. Um, just not that great. I mean, Poison isn't doing quite well. I mean, Dark Chain is technically maybe a poison unit as well, but she has a lot of other features that make her, you know, a more general purpose unit. Dark Colon, on the other hand, really needs that kind of poison going. I mean, her Savage Poison is a kind of a nice mechanic, much better than, for example, Reina, which we have in E tier here. But yeah, overall, not much to say about her. I'm not sure if D tier is quite fair for her, but she can't be called a higher tier unit, unfortunately. And then we have Storm Elmina, which is currently actually the highest rated units in my rankings. She's really pushing everything out of the way when she was released. Just the perfect combination with the kind of stealth, with the kind of stealth attacks, ignoring the opponent's armor, and revenge passives. So great counter for Dark Gene if she's not protected by guard. And she has that kind of stealth power going for her, so her attacks might not look that great on paper, 300 and 400%, but with the kind of stealth power, those become 450 and 600% attacks, which also ignore armor, so it's just really, really strong. And then you have the other passive, which is the stealth stun skin, and this one is kind of preventing her from being targeted at all, because, you know, people get stunned, and they don't like to get stunned in Evertale auto arenas. So yeah, she's pretty much flowing under the radar, just killing off things. Similarly to Dark Chain, but she can also very well kill off Dark Chain. Then again, this is, you know, at this stage of the game, but let's go on. We have Fire Mirai next, another burn unit. And as I said in the other video, burn is having a tough time in Evertale 2.0. However, there might be some improvement coming. And Yeah, but in any case, we have C tier for her, 13 teams that are using her abilities in their top arena team. Not much to say here. She has some good skills for a burn unit, but yeah, burn is just having some struggles, let's put it like that. And then from some struggles, we have the ultimate meta killer being released, which was Earth Misha. And what I said earlier about Storm Elmina and Dark Gene basically being untouchable and ignored by the AI, just killing all the whole teams off. This is not true anymore because of this one unit, Earth Misha, with the kind of stealthy vengeance passive really popping off, really, having the ability to attack two stealth units even while they are stealthed, and even if they are behind a guard or something, then she can still get to Storm Elmina and Dark Gene. So that's why there's also much fewer teams running Storm Elmina and Dark Gene in the front now. If there was a Misha banner on a server, I expect this to be pushed back quite a bit, because Earth Misha is just really born to be in the first platoon and kind of killing off these meta units, but also some others as well, obviously. Her weakness is a strong fire unit, of course, and it helps her that the fire meta has been really, really struggling for a very long time. And then, so as you can see, we have some strong units coming out here last year around this time. Let's see if this repeats this year, because it went on for quite a while, I think. We have Mitsu coming up next, Mitsuchi, who is ranking in the SS tier. She's a situational unit, I would say. I personally don't have her, but she can be extremely annoying if she pops off. If there's no guard, protecting your units, then she can time drain a lot of times. The kind of lower requirement of 100 TU really helps her there, and obviously the automatic counter with the hold ground is something that can be quite annoying if you face her and if you have her on a team. And also, she's a pretty good finisher unit, so she's probably one of the units that you can easily plop down in your fourth platoon, and she can do some great work for you there. Then we have Light Hibiki, also really, really good unit. What can I say about her? 69 teams are using her as of now, and she's going to the S tier. She has a banish skill, which is nice, so banishing always good to have. On the other hand, you have this kind of auto Mori passive, 50% lucky Mori or whatever it is called, which creates Moris right next in the row of reinforcements. So, if she doesn't get killed with a hold ground passive, hold ground plus passive, she has, the ability to stay alive for quite a bit. Then she can possibly create quite a lot of Moris for you, which will protect your teammates as well as her potentially. So yeah, this is something definitely to look out for. She's an S tier unit, actually kind of leading the S tier based on my rankings as an 11th place. And then we have Earthlet Miller, which was released as a kind of New Year's Christmas unit combined. I was never really a fan of her. There are still 8 units using her, so she goes to C tier, and maybe, she has some good use cases. I mean, her gift turn plus is nice, but I would not recommend pulling for her, honestly. I think there are some units in lower tiers that I would rather use than her, but that's just me, personally. Based on the data, she goes to the C tier. And then we have Earth Anya, and she is a new 100% SSR guard with that kind of poison random skin. Really something good. However, she is not quite SSS tier. She's landing in SS tier here. Had some potential maybe to go up higher, but guards are having a tougher and tougher time in the recent meta, especially at the top. And so she's beginning to drop a bit. She was pretty close to SSS tier actually in the last edition in July, but now she dropped significantly after her banner released. Her second banner was released. She didn't quite live up to the expectations, and 81 teams are currently using her. I mean, definitely a strong unit, but not the strongest unit, and also not the best guard around. And she kind of needs that kind of poison surroundings, which also isn't that popular at the moment. Although possibly, Rin can make Earth Anya more relevant again, although her armor also gets ignored by all these armor and stealth, armor ignoring and stealth attacks. So yeah, not 100% sold on her. I mean, one thing she has going for her is that has the elemental advantage against Storm Elmina, so she's kind of a wall against her possibly. Then we have Storm Callan up next, and 42 teams are using her. She lands in the A tier, and she's an interesting unit for sure. I mean, she has some strong stuns that she could pull off, and before she pulls off the strongest stun, which also eats up a lot of spirit, she has a lot of hate from the AI, and what that means is with her other passive, which is that Mega Elixir Revenge thing, where all your other teammates get armored, get quickened, get enraged. Most importantly, I think for me, is the quickened part. She's kind of an interesting unit to start off your game with. Personally, I'm also using her in my first 4 in the battalion, and yeah, she usually gets killed quickly, quickens all my other units, and that's her whole use case for me. Obviously, this is not quite enough, and if she doesn't get killed quickly, then there's also a chance that an enemy Misha, for example, takes her out easily, especially with the elemental advantage. But yeah, in general, still an interesting unit to use. Probably not someone I would personally fully awaken, but it's someone you could pull for. And then we have Water Jean coming up next. 47 teams using her. She's A tier as well, and she's also having some interesting properties. Also, that 2-in-1 mechanic, probably one of the kind of far from the kind of Dark Jean mechanic, but still interesting for sleep teams and for sleep lineups. Yeah, not much to say there. I personally don't have her and don't see her on the battlefield a lot of times, so yeah, I mean, her weakness, main weakness I suppose, is Storm Elmina as well, and also Dark Jean and Misha etc. can do a lot of damage for her. Yeah, so then we have Sakura next, and Sakura has some interesting mechanics. Only 36 teams are using her though. She's also landing in A tier. The cool thing about her is kind of that auto purify thingy, which is a strong counter to sleep units especially. The lower requirement for overdrive is also nice for her. She has some good healing properties. So yeah, she can be a strong part of your team, but yeah, A team not quite reaching the absolutely must-have territory, which I would say is technically only the SSS tier, but also if you want to be, widen your scope, then the SS tier units you should also definitely have in your lineup. And then going from there, we have Bright Astrid. And Bright Astrid, also a 100% guard fire version, has some interesting properties, but needs a lot of spirit to really pop off. She doesn't necessarily need a burn team with her, although I think it's probably nice. But yeah, in general, 63 units, 63 teams are using her. She's landing in the SS tier. Yeah, not much to say. 100% guard like Earth Anya. Good stuff, but I have to note that she fell off a lot in my recent rankings, and actually she's only S tier now. So SS tier, that was in July. Now it's only the S tier for the September 2022 tier list. Then we have Light Musha, and Light Musha in general seems to have an interesting skill set, and also Hold Ground Plus units can never be underestimated. However, her main weakness is kind of some units that you don't want her to push back, she still pushes back. So the main example of this is obviously Bright Ludmilla, the SSR guard, which kind of regains all health and armor and abilities once she's pushed back. And yeah, Light Misha likes to do that with her Vigor Launcher. So units that can help your enemy team are also always kind of problematic, and she's one of these. A more dangerous example for me is Reyna, but yeah, she has some better skills to make up for it, but still, she's definitely being held back by that kind of shortcoming. I mean, this is more, I guess, a fault of her AI, but still, only 16 teams are using her, and so she's going to B tier. And the next unit is Shooten Daoji. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly at all. Also the other units, but this one especially, and she also goes to B tier. Has some interesting mechanics, but just a bit of a low survivability. You know, she's in the same tier, landing in the same tier as Dark Reset, but choosing between those two, I would definitely go for Shooten Daoji as a better poison unit that also has some cool mechanics, keeping her alive longer with that kind of stealth call, also producing more of these and having some good attacks overall. She's just a better version, I would say, at this point as Dark Reset, but still, you know, having that kind of B tier going right now. Then we have another poison unit to some degree, Gaia, coming up. She's only landing in C tier, and maybe that even is giving her a bit too much credit. I mean, she has a nice entry effect with that kind of armoring and enraging your team's units. But yeah, in general, her skill set is a bit lacking for me. She can poison some units, and she has that kind of Avenger skill, Avenger all skill, which is, I think, very bad, honestly. But yeah, she lands in C tier for now. And that is because 4 teams are using her, and she has a bit of a boost because we didn't see her second banner yet. Let's see if a few more are using her afterwards. I am honestly pretty doubtful of it. But speaking of disappointing units, we also have Fire Antares, which, while many enjoy her art, her skill set and her behavior on the AI battlefield is something else entirely. 3 teams are currently using her. She is going into C tier with that. Still didn't have a second banner yet, which is true for all of these units that are still left. Yeah, let's see, not much to say. She's a burn unit. They really tried to buff burn units, I feel like, this year with some success, but you know, some of these are just not really cutting it in the current meta. I'm gonna talk about a really strong unit that I think will be popping off pretty well later on, but this is not the case for Fire Antares, and it's also not the case for Fire Misha, even less so, who lands into D tier. Yeah, not much to say. I mean, she has that kind of interesting get your turn when you're about to be defeated, but it would be better if she, didn't get defeated at all. And sometimes she gets a turn and then just does an ignition here, also producing some spirit or something because she didn't have, doesn't have the burn effect or doesn't have something unlocked like the Savage skill. And then we have Momoka, interesting unit for sure. She goes to A tier. Her emergency guard mechanic is quite interesting, I think. I mean, her trouble is that Storm Elmina is her arch nemesis. I mean, she has that kind of sleep revenge passive, but Selmina just ignores this. And so yeah, that's just not that great. I mean, she is an interesting support with, her kind of defense and the attack spells. So yeah, someone to keep your eye on. Let's see how she develops after the second banner. But yeah, for now, she's just A tier, which is, pretty good compared to the units that came out before her. And then we have Light Colin, and she's even better than Momoka. Momoka being used by 27 teams, Light Colin by 38 teams is going to the S tier, and she has a really interesting mechanic of, that kind of lightning entry where she gets the turn immediately. Also, that kind of sleep swap mechanic being well utilized by the AI, as far as I can tell. And also the knockout, the guard knockout, where she puts a guard to sleep and hurts it severely. So after Light Column, we have Fire Ray, which was hyped up a bit by the Japanese tier list, I think. Personally, I say yes, she is a pretty good burn unit, but burn is just having a pretty hard time. She lands into C tier currently with 6 units using her, going up a bit, maybe getting more interesting again with the recent burn unit release. But other than that, she's probably struggling, not seeing her going to S tier or above anytime. And so, yeah, this is where she currently lands in the C tier. And going from her to the next unit, we have Water Snow White, and she's actually, based on my rankings, the strongest unit that came out ever since Mitsuchi. Only 63 teams are using her right now, but she only had her first banner and she's already doing quite well for herself. She's going into SS tier and she might be the first one to crack open the SSS tier in a long time. Interesting mechanic, obviously with her kind of counter skin and the healing stealth. So you really need to finish her off. Storm Elmina again being her main enemy, but you can hide her a bit. Misha is obviously also somewhat strong against her, but she has a really nice mechanic with the kind of deadly sleep. So if she pops off, she can put whole enemy teams to sleep kind of, and then doing some good attack on her that also generates spirit and recharges her to 100% health. So basically having 2 ways to regenerate health, also being stealth and having stealth attacks, which helps against the passives that are out there. So yeah, really good unit. Interesting to see where she goes from here. She's already quite high. Maybe, as I said before, she can crack open the SSS tier, which has been stable for a very long time. Personally, she is also the first unit that I fully awakened on her first banner, so I also had high hopes in her and I was not disappointed so far. Then we have Theo, the first male unit, I think in about 2 years that was released. And yeah, what can I say? He's landing in the D tier. I only found a single team of the 100 using him, He has interesting mechanic with the healing pulse and everything. So 1.5 years ago, he would probably be a great unit to have. Nowadays, not so much anymore. On the other hand, we have Dark Raina, also an interesting unit that was released. 28% of top teams are using her, and she's going into A tier currently. Still curious to see where she goes from here. I mean, she's also, I think, similar to Mitsuchi in a way where if she pops off, it's really, really dangerous and she can be really good, but she can also just die quickly, and then, yeah, there's not much to write home about with her. Then we have Merlin, which is kind of, to some degree, a Storm Rolosha 2.0, but still having some disadvantages, especially as the AI handles her. So from what I've heard and what I've seen, she tends to not use her stun all exit, which is kind of a great move if certain conditions aren't met. Obviously, she has, to use a skill first or have some time pass, but that's not the issue with her AI. I think, for example, if you have a blood unit on your team and you have some Moris in the back, she won't use the stun all exit, which puts her in the back. And also her mage's stand skill is just really underwhelming, I think. All these kind of last stand skills are just not really doing it for me, because I have very rarely seen any of them used in the AI, because they usually just die before being the last on the battlefield. And if you are already the last on the battlefield, you really need to have some very strong skills to keep staying alive. And now, as a last unit, as I said before, Rin will not be tiered yet. We have Freya. I'm not sure how to say her name, but she's the new burn unit on the block. And yeah, not much to say for me, except she goes straight to the S tier, and I have some moderate hopes for her. I think she could actually be a unit that you need to watch out for. I mean, she has a really, really good skill set with that kind of hold crowd plus, in combination with being a temporary guardian, which hasn't been that attractive lately, but I think with that kind of hold ground plus mechanic, it makes a lot more sense. She can regain health with a very strong, in combination with a very strong attack. When she reaches hold ground plus, the only thing is she needs some spirit. So really have to provide her with some spirit, otherwise not that great of a unit. But if you are in a high spirits surrounding, then this unit is definitely someone to watch out for, even if it's not a burn team. And again, talking about the kind of meta SSS tier units which we have here now at the end of our video, she's really, really strong in, defeating potentially Musha, which is kind of the meta killer in herself. So this Freya is kind of a Misha counter, I think, and so this is why I'm expecting to see a lot more of her and potentially hurting Misha's chances in the future. Or yeah, let's see. Getting ahead of myself. This is the current ranking, but yeah, Freya just released already, based on her usage stats, which are still somewhat low, but very promising. Is getting the S tier badge already, and let's see. She should, at the very least, I think, become the strongest fire unit in my rankings, and let's see if she can also help other fire team comps become more relevant again. So yeah, this is the whole tier list. Thanks for watching. These are the top tiers. Again, I'm gonna upload it on Reddit as usual. And yeah, hope you enjoyed watching this. It's a very long video, so I'm not sure if anyone even went through the whole thing, but in any case, appreciate you watching. The next one would probably be much shorter, as it would focus on the changes in tiers. But yeah, That's it. True signing out. Have a nice day.